Well, after a busy week of manager specials and championship predictions, we are back today to look ahead to match week 18 and a full weekend fixture list in the EFL Championship. We're going to go through all 12 matches taking place between Friday and Monday. And as always, we're going to give our score predictions, get you to do the same in the comments below. And if you beat or match my overall score predictions for this weekend, you'll get a shout out when we return next midweek to look ahead to match week 19. A quick reminder that there will be a bonus one-off on Sunday looking ahead to the one controversially rearranged game between Blackburn and Ipswich. But for now, before we go and look ahead to a full weekend of action, let's go and have a quick look back at what happened in midweek, because match week 17 was a little bit more respectable in terms of the scorelines. There were still a few crazy ones and I did still lose some points 8 on. But Wednesday night saved the day. 2 perfect scores there for Millwall and for West Brom versus Birmingham. And then 2 other points for Stoke and Sheffield United, where I was 1 out on a scoreline for Stoke City too. A disastrous Tuesday aside from that leaves me with 8 points overall, which is not a bad effort this week. But there are still a fair few of you that managed to beat or match my score. So let's go and have a look at how the comment section got on, because level with me on 8 points are Adam, Sven and Brian, who remarkably didn't get a perfect score, just got 8 of the outcomes correct. 1 above us on 9 are Mitchell and Chris, before double figures for Teo and Nigel on 10, Nathan and Steve on 11, then our match week runner-up, Poppy, back in form on 12, and Mick, star of the show, the second time you've put in a big display this season, 13 points, the match week winner, and 11 of those gained on Tuesday night, where by contrast, I only got 1. So a cracking effort, but can you back it up in match week 18? We'll find out starting on Friday night, where Oxford United host Ipswich Town. 2 sides in very different form at the moment. Oxford not 1 in 5. Ipswich at the moment just look unbeatable. They're back up into the playoff places, only 3 points off second, and we're starting to see the Ipswich Town team we thought we might. But weirdly, the entertainment is coming away from home for them. They've scored 10 in their last 3 away matches, including a 2-0 victory against Hull City in midweek. Chuba Akpom and Nunes, 2 of the summer additions amongst the goals. It was a pretty good away display. They were the better team, to be honest, and they're starting to look like the side that we thought they'd be at the start of the season. It seems to be settling down. They've had a couple of frustrating games at home recently, but on the road, they look a real threat. And that's going to be interesting against an Oxford team that pretty much always set up as the away side. They've had a couple of tough games at home recently with Stoke and Borough, and they've obviously not been able to win. And to be honest, it's been a tough run of form, but will they be given a boost by that 95th minute equaliser against Norwich, which keeps them 5 points ahead of Norwich as it happens, albeit they drop into the relegation zone following Wednesday's results. But the one thing that was perhaps a bit more impressive from Oxford in that Norwich game was that they did create a few chances. They carried a bit of an attacking threat on a break, and that's not something that Oxford always do away from home, certainly not since they've been back in the Championship. So it does make this a more interesting one, but at the moment, Oxford are really struggling to keep the goals out. They haven't kept a clean sheet in their last 6. They're letting in goals against good sides at home, and Ipswich look brilliant on the break. So I'm going to have to go for a fairly hefty win for the visitors. I'm going to go for Ipswich Town on this occasion by 3-0. As we move on to Saturday lunchtime and 2 sides that have got recent Premier League experience, but both find themselves in the bottom half. It is Leicester City versus Sheffield United. We talked about Leicester finding some form with back-to-back wins that should have been more comfortable than they were. Well, 2 early conceded goals, then a red card ruined their midweek, didn't it? A very comfortable 3-0 defeat to Southampton, played off the park in all aspects of the game. And to be honest, they gave up some poor goals. And you can't play with 10 against a team like that. Once you're 2 down, it's game over. So a very frustrating day for Leicester. But the last home game at home to Stoke was a good performance, a good result. So maybe that's a sign of things to come. For Sheffield United, however, much more positive signs. Yes, against 2 of the bottom 5 in the division, but back-to-back 3-0 wins. Okay, Pompey again affected by an early red card, and that was what led to the 3 goals for Sheffield United in the end, playing against 10 men. However, a really comfortable display, a more solid defensive effort than we've seen from them for a long time. They controlled the match as they did against Sheffield Wednesday. Patrick Bamford got off the mark. Gus Harmer's back in the team and scoring. And supposedly Ollie Arbalast are not far away either. There is a sign that Sheffield United are getting back to what they were. And look, they've found their setup now. They've gone to the back 4. They've dropped McGuinness out. And they seem to have found a far more solid shape back there. and it does look like they're starting to find their way. But last time that happened, they then threw in an absolute clanger of a performance. I really don't know what to go for this one. There's part of me that thinks Leicester will win, but both of these sides have been guilty of missing chances all season. Sheffield United seem to be finding more of a ruthless streak for now. So do you know what? I'm going to go for a bit of a surprise in this one. I think Sheffield United might nick this game. I'm going to go by 2-1. As we move on to the second early kickoff, which is the team at Sheffield United beating midweek. It is Pompey versus Bristol City. For Portsmouth, well, a couple of disastrous away performances. We know what they're like on the road. They've conceded 10 in their last 3 there. But at home, they have to rely on that form at Fratton Park. A 3-1 win against Millwall before. This may present a tougher test, certainly with Bristol City's player availability and capability on the break too. But their 2-0 defeat at Wrexham was not the best of performances or results, to be honest. It was a pretty even match on paper, but they gave up a couple of good opportunities. And it's just not quite clicking consistently for Bristol City just yet. Still in a good position in 7th, still fighting for the playoffs. But on the road in recent weeks, they've had that 2-0 at Wrexham. They lost 5 at Stoke, drew at Watford, which wasn't a bad result. But it's hard to predict them to win there. And Pompey's home form is so important now. They've got to look over their shoulder. I think they might nick a win in this game. Bristol City have been a little poorer in recent times, just 1 win in their last 5. And although Portsmouth ship goals for fun away from home, at home they've been relatively solid. So I'm going to go for Pompey to win by 2-1 on Saturday. As we move on to the side that have retaken second place in the division, the final early kickoff is Stoke City versus Hull City. For Stoke, a really good 3-0 win against Charlton. We'll get to whatever's happening to them later, but 2 up in 5 minutes. Sorba Thomas, I mean, I continue to mention it because it's the only thing I've got right this year. I said he would be championship signing of the season, and boy is he. A really good performance, got themselves in control, and then just dominated the game from that point forward. It was the perfect Tuesday night display. It gave them a chance to then rest people a little bit towards the end, keep possession, keep things sensible, and hopefully that will keep them fresh for the weekend, because Hull have been an interesting side this year. Goals galore in most of their games. We saw them lose 3-2 at QPR last week after beating Pompey 3-2 at home. Then they lose 2-0 at home to Ipswich in a game where, let's be honest, they were second best against a very good team, but there's no shame in that. Ipswich are starting to find real form now. But this makes it quite interesting because Hull are just starting to dwindle after their early season form. 3 defeats in 4. Both of their last 2 away games, they've conceded goals for fun. And Stoke City at home have been pretty formidable this year, with a 3-0 against Charlton and a 5-1 against Bristol City. The only one they've lost recently, obviously, are home to Coventry, the league leaders. So I think this is going to have to be a home win in my book. I don't know that they'll keep a clean sheet. I don't know if it'll be as convincing as many are expecting, because Hull are a good side to carry a threat. But I'm going to go for Stoke to win this game. And I'm going to go relatively comfortably. I'm going to go for 2-0 to the home side here. As we move on to the league leaders, who you could argue are playing their opponents at a perfect time. It is Coventry City versus Charlton Athletic in the first 3 p.m. kickoff. What's happened to Charlton? So solid all season, 8 goals conceded, all in the first half in their last 2 matches. They've started the games awfully. Yes, they've had a couple of defenders out. I know Bree came back in midweek, but Amari Bell on the bench, they'll be hoping he can start at the weekend. But it's been a really strange old week or 2 for Charlton. After a really good start, a few things to be concerned about. And the second best defence in the Championship has now gone and conceded 20 goals and is nowhere near that a week later. Yes, they've played against a good Stoke and Southampton side, but Coventry are the only side that are performing better than those at the moment, because Coventry win 4-2 at Middlesbrough despite being pegged back from 2-0 up. They found a way to win late on. They're so relentless going forward. So much quality. They'll be frustrated with the way that they gave up their goals and their chances against Borough, because it was a game where for large parts they were in control and in the ascendancy. But going forward, they just have so much talent, so much in form. Probably didn't expect Liam Kitchen to be getting a brace, but with Ellis Sims in form as well, so many players amongst the goals. It is a fabulous looking team at the minute. And yes, that run is going to end eventually, but 10 points clear, absolutely flying. You have to back Coventry to win this one. Coventry to win by 3-1 for me. Charlton starting to struggle defensively. I think they'll just want to write this week off at the end. As we move on to the side that Coventry beat in midweek, it is Middlesbrough versus Derby County. Of course, Borough will have Kim Hellberg in a dugout for the first time. We did a manager special on that up in the eye above if you want to know more about him. A 4-2 defeat against Coventry is It's no real disaster because they're beating everyone at the moment, but the manner of which they conceded their goals will be frustrating. They gave up a few easy ones, didn't really create an awful lot, but again, those individual moments of magic are keeping them in games. But look, it's been a decent run for Borough. They've kept things going fairly solidly, given the situation in recent weeks. I know they've only won one of their last 6, but they picked up a few 1-1 draws against decent teams. Look, it's been a period of unexpected change for them, and in the circumstances, they've done okay. It's going to be interesting to see how Kim Hellberg develops, how he integrates into English football, and how quickly he does, because he's actually coming up against one of the form teams in the division. Derby County have won 5 of their last 6, including in midweek against Swansea, ruining another new manager's home debut. Will John Eustace do the same twice in a week? Because the one thing we'd accused them of in the past, and John Eustace generally, is not having a great away record in the Championship. Well, it's 3 wins in a row for Derby away from home. They've got a goal threat. They look really solid for the most part of the back. They seem to have found their style where they have very little possession. They have, a quarter of it against Swansea. But on the break, look like scoring almost every single time. Yes, throwing bodies on the line, forcing a couple of good saves from the keeper. But you've got to do that away from home. You've got to grind. You've got to dig in. But for Derby to be an 8th on 26 points, they'll be absolutely thrilled at this stage. A really good result for them. And I think they might spoil the party again. I'm not going to go for another win for Derby, but they haven't had a draw for a while. Borough have loved a 1-1 in recent weeks. I'm going to go for the same again in Kim Hellberg's debut. Into the second half, and a side that will be grateful to have a player back from injury. It is Millwall versus informed Southampton. Let's deal with the hosts first, who, again, have just sort of been plodding along, picking up the odd point while they've had injuries, but Femi Aziz back in just the nick of time against Sheffield Wednesday for Millwall. On after the hour, scores 10 minutes later, and Millwall get a win in a game where they were good, but they weren't completely convincing in front of goal. On another day, they could have scored 4 or 5. We've always talked about that ruthless cutting edge. Ivanovic not really in the best form at the minute, albeit he still scored a couple recently. They got the assist via Alfie Doughty, which I've seen constantly from Luton's point of view. But they've still got a solid side. They're starting to see a couple come back now, which is going to be really important in recent weeks. And as they build up to fitness, it's going to be crucial that they can get them playing over the festive period where games come thick and fast every 3 or 4 days. For Southampton, what a turnaround. No Will Still, no problem. 4 games, 4 victories. 13 goals scored in that process as well, only 3 conceded. They played Leicester off the park. They were magnificent again. The first half performances, they're coming out the traps quickly. 3 up at the break here. 4 against Charlton early doors as well. Just a really impressive season. Just a really impressive spell for them. They're now just 3 points off the playoffs after those 4 wins. And this one looks like perhaps being a 5th because Millwall are still not back in top shape yet. They've still got players finding fitness. They've still got a few to come in. And the Saints look pretty much unstoppable. So we've seen a couple of heavy Millwall defeats at home earlier in the season. I'm going to go for another one here. I know most of their recent goals shipped have been away from home. I'm going to go for Southampton, the visitors, to win this one by 3-1. As we move on to another new manager who had his party spoiled on Tuesday night, it is Norwich City versus QPR. Great win for the visitors at Blackburn, by the way. 2 in a row for them, 3 unbeaten now. I do really like the QPR manager. I think they're setting up well. I think that the signs are there that they're going to be a very good side. They restricted Blackburn to not a lot, albeit the couple of chances they had were excellent. But they looked a bit of a threat on the break. We still talk about that regular goal threat, but they've got people popping up with the odd one, and that's important to see. Obviously forced to a change in goal, which wasn't ideal there, but the 2 strikers that came on made the difference, got involved for the goal, and Ilias Chair producing some creative sparks again. So a really good performance for QPR on the road, a really good week for them so far. And they come up against the Norwich side, who under Philippe Clement thought they were going to nick their first victory, but at home, 95th minute heartbreak. And to be honest, one of the concerns I would have, we mentioned it in the first game tonight, Oxford United don't create much on the road. They very rarely have a lot of shots on goal. And they were opened up a few times, Norwich. Defensively, there needs to be improvements there. If they're going to play a set style of football, which they seem intent to under certain managers, they've got to improve that defence to work for it. At the moment, the players just aren't there for the style they're trying to implement. So it's going to be an interesting weekend, this. It's important, we said, that Norwich pick up at least 4 points out of these 2. The home games, they're drifting now. They're 6 points from safety because Sheffield United and Oxford, of course, picking up points against them this time. So this is going to be a crucial one. You feel like they've got to win. But I don't think they're going to. QPR are a great side on the break. Norwich offer space in behind and have conceded goals for fun this year. I'm going to go for the visitors to win it and spoil the party with a perfect week and a 2-1 win for them. As we move on to a battle between a side at the bottom of the table and one in the playoff mix, it is Sheffield Wednesday versus Preston North End. For Wednesday, again, a valiant effort, a really decent display, but not enough against Millwall. They were outplayed and on another day could have conceded 4 or 5. Shout out to even Horvath, who made a couple of good saves. And to be fair, they were throwing their bodies on the line, but they just ran out of steam, as they did in the derby at the weekend. That last 10, 15, 20 minutes, they just can't track back as quickly. You're playing the same 11 virtually every match. There's not a lot behind it. You've got to feel for Wednesday. But look, it's not about this season now, is it? They're still fighting. They're back at home and they're up against a Preston side that have not been brilliant in the last week, but are still doing pretty well. A 1-1 draw away at Watford is not a bad result at all, albeit they'll be unhappy in the manner they conceded just before half-time, and the fact that for large parts of that game they were outplayed, and on another day could have lost it. But they got a point. They did so at Millwall as well. I guess take the Blackburn game out, they'd probably be pretty happy with their recent form. Despite the fact they've got a few injuries, they are still up in 6th place, and Paul Heckingbottom has done what he did at Sheffield United prior. He's built a good championship team. So you've got to give him credit for building a solid, steady, experienced side. And I think that'll be enough to beat what should be a very fatigued Sheffield Wednesday this weekend. Again, I don't think it'll be convincing. I don't think it'll be particularly exciting. I'm going to go for Preston to nick the odd goal and win on the road by a 1-0. 2 to go on Saturday, and we start with West Bromwich Albion against Vitor Matos' Swansea. Again, that manager special up in the eye above. A very interesting appointment, but I won't overlap the information that I gave in that one yesterday. For West Brom, a 1-1 draw at home to Birmingham. An interesting game, I would say. They certainly competed. A draw was probably a fair result. And to be honest, there wasn't a huge amount separating them. But for West Brom, it's all about the goal threat. Who's going to score those goals regularly for them? Are they going to be able to keep strikers fit? Can they create enough for them? At the moment, the answer is not really. But the difference is under Carlos Corberán, and in previous years, they were keeping clean sheets, which at the moment, none in their last 4. And the only game they've done it is Sheffield Wednesday recently, who, to be honest, haven't got much of a threat at the bottom of the table. For Swansea City, 4 defeats in a row and concerns from the first game of the Matos era, which is, again, a lot of possession. I mentioned it with his Maritimo side. They keep the ball a lot, but they weren't heavy scorers. They were nicking 1 or 2 nils and then dominating the possession and controlling the game. But you can't do that if you keep conceding the first goal on the break. And Swansea, I don't feel, have the defence to cope with that high line and that high pressing intensity at the moment. So it's going to be interesting to see how the next few weeks pan out. In the last 4 games under 2 managers, they've conceded, 11 goals. They've only scored 3. They're drifting down the table and now just 2 points from that dotted line. And that's something you've got to be a little bit concerned about, because West Brom are fairly solid at home. You wouldn't expect them to drop points. And actually, if Swansea try and control the game and possession, might even suit West Brom better, because breaking down a team is the thing that they've struggled with more. So I'm going to go for the Baggies to win this one. I think Swansea will play into their hands. Vitor Matos is going to have to learn about English football quickly. But for now, I'm going to go for West Brom to win this one by 2-0. And a final game on Saturday between 2 sides that have had, very different weeks, haven't they? Is Wrexham versus Blackburn, as Wrexham make it 4 successive clean sheets in the Championship. And I give massive credit to Phil Parkinson here. They're up to 10th place. They're 2 points off the playoffs. He's had talk about his job early in the season, which was ridiculous, to be honest with you. And he's adapted his team. He's built them to be solid. We were talking about the amount of silly goals they were shipping at the start of the year and that he couldn't go on. Yes, they've not quite found their attacking threat in all of those games now, but a draw away at Ipswich now looks a great result based on their recent form. And they've beaten Bristol City, Charlton and the league leaders Coventry at home in the last month. It's been a spectacular effort, really. Nathan Broadhead is starting to show his worth as a signing. It was an even game, but Wrexham looked a threat on the break. They've always carried that attacking threat. And defensively, they're starting to look far more solid. As their defence settles in, they try to find the best players and combinations, which is always going to take time after a number of signings. But overall, I'm really impressed with how they're doing. For Blackburn, a little bit of a frustrating midweek after, 4 wins in 5, starting to look in form. It's actually the home games they're struggling with more at the minute. At home to QPR, didn't create a lot, had a couple of good chances, but weren't a constant threat in that game. And against Derby, they had their frustrations as well. But their last 3 away matches, solid efforts, good performances on the road, look good at the back. And that's why this prediction is going to be ridiculous, because I've got 2 teams here who defensively have been brilliant at home and away respectively in recent weeks. But I've got a feeling this is going to be a cracker because Blackburn are great on the break. Wrexham are brilliant from aerial threat, from set pieces, from crosses into the box. And both sides are probably playing into each other's weakness, which will allow us to see an entertaining game and goals galore, I think. So, surprisingly, after 4 clean sheets in a row for Wrexham and just 1 conceded in the last 3 away games for Blackburn, with no logic whatsoever other than that, I'm going for 3-2 to Wrexham in the final game of Saturday afternoon. As we move in to the first game of December and the final game of the match week, on Monday evening, it is Birmingham City versus Watford. Both sides drew 1-1 in midweek and have made it 4 points from 2 games in the week so far. I want to address the Birmingham situation because there's a few people in the comments getting a little bit carried away, saying Birmingham the best team in the division and that. Now at home, probably other than Coventry, look the best team in the league at the minute. 4 scored in each of their last 3 games, blowing teams away, starting to find that style of play. However, Birmingham City have the 4th worst away record in the Championship this year. At West Brom, it was a decent display, but it was an even game. It wasn't one where they can say we were so unfortunate not to win that. And away at Borough obviously had their struggles when they were without a manager too. So, difficult away from home. They're still trying to find their way tactically there, but they're certainly finding it at home. For Watford, I've actually been impressed under Javi Gracia at how they've adapted away from home, where they've normally been really poor. Got that draw at Ipswich, a 3-2 win at Derby last time, and while they were a bit frustrated against Preston in a game where, let's be honest, they should have gone on to win it after getting level by half-time, they had more of the ball, more of the chances, just didn't take them. It was one of those days, unfortunately, which Watford are having a bit too often, 3-1 draws in their last 4 matches. What do we go for here? Because Birmingham has been so relentless at home in the last few weeks. Watford are improving on the road. They did have a threat in front of goal against the likes of Derby, Ipswich, even Coventry prior to that when they lost as well. Had a couple of other one-on-ones. I'm going to give them a goal for sure. I just think Birmingham will have too much at home. If it was at Vicarage Road, I'd probably go the other way round. I'm going to go for Birmingham City here to win by 3-1 on Monday night. So with that out of the way, let's have a quick recap of what we've gone for this weekend, because I have gone for goals galore actually. 5 teams to score 3 or more in Ipswich, Coventry, Southampton, Wrexham and Birmingham. I've also gone for one Championship's favourite scoreline between Middlesbrough and Derby, as Kim Hellberg will have his first home game spoil. I'm still not going for Philip Clement to get his first win, and Vita Matos will complete the set with a 2-0 defeat for Swansea City. Those are just my predictions for this weekend. No, do you agree or disagree? Let me know in the comments below. Give us your score predictions. And if you beat or match my score, you'll get a shout out when we return next Wednesday to look ahead to another weekend of Championship action. A reminder before that we will be back on Sunday to have a little look ahead to the one-off game between Blackburn and Ipswich, which is rearranged following the abandonment a couple of months ago. And we've also got manager specials in the eye above, covering Norwich, Middlesbrough and Swansea over the last couple of weeks with their new appointments. If you want to stay up to date with everything and you did enjoy this one, please chuck a thumbs up, subscribe, turn that notification bell on, all the usual good stuff. And we'll see you back here on Sunday afternoon to look ahead to a mini midweek edition before the full lot returns next Wednesday. I'll see you there.